Way back when, I watched a TEDx speech by a vegan activist named Ed Winters. I also remember watching videos of his where I was supremely underwhelmed by the arguments that he gave. I think some people who watch him find him approachable or maybe even charismatic, and I have to admit I also found his content just palatable enough to have watched more than one of his videos. The problem was, when I actually listened to what he was saying, I realized that he was either blatantly lying or just simply being misleading, neither of which are acceptable when people's health is on the line.
American Dietetic Association and the British Dietetic Association, which are the largest bodies of diet and nutrition professionals in both countries, they've both categorically stated that a vegan plant-based diet is nutritionally adequate, health and safe for all stages of life, including pregnancy.
This was years ago, before the major influx of ex-vegan and anti-vegan content on YouTube, and I would even venture to say before the carnivore diet started to become more mainstream. One would think that the indisputable revelations of the vegan diet being as bad as it is for humans, and of a meat-based diet being as healing as it is for humans, some things would require introspection or perhaps even revocation. But that hasn't happened, at least not in the case of Ed Winters. I had always thought something was fishy about him, though back then I didn't really have much ammo, so I put it on a back burner. I recently began consuming more vegan and anti-vegan content to see how things are going. To be honest, it doesn't look very good. I thought the TEDx speech especially aged poorly. However, Ed doesn't seem to agree. As recently as 5 or 6 months ago, as of the posting of this video, he posted a video responding to some of the comments of people who disagreed with him. Let's take a look at that video together now.
Back in early 2019, I gave a TEDx talk called Every Argument Against Veganism, and it did really well and now has over 2 million views. However, not everyone was so convinced by what I had to say.
That's because it was mostly BS. Also, for reasons stated in this video, if you feel so inclined.
So I thought in today's video, as a celebration of going over 2 million views, I would respond to some of the comments from those people who weren't so convinced. Now, funnily enough, I went to the comment section with a sense of trepidation. I was expecting a barrage of negative comments and criticism. However, that is not the case. The overwhelming majority of the comments are really kind and are really wonderful and have lots of positive stories contained within them.
Echo chambers are great, aren't they? Albeit boring. That's why I'm excited for this video, in which I'm sure Ed is going to find the comments that really challenge his ideology, I'm sure.
But they were there because, of course, they were always going to be there. Hidden amongst the positive stories of people going vegan were those comments from people who are not so convinced, ranging from the outraged to the indignant to the just completely bizarre. What follows are some of my favorites in that selection.
Oh, so he just chose his favorites? That kind of makes this a pointless exercise. I take back what I said.
Okay, so let's get back to the video, and just a little disclaimer, you will be bewildered. So the first comment is, it took him so little time to tell us that he is vegan.
Yeah, this isn't the best comment. I would have ignored it. Far be it from me to criticize, but this is one of your favorites?
My son is a doctor in general practice who has seen thousands of patients during his career, thousands. He tells me with certainty that he has never seen a vegan or vegetarian patient over the age of 75. Other colleagues of his make the same statement. Food for thought, all of you vegans out there. Now, straight off the bat, one of the best things about this comment is how what they're trying to say is that because this person has never seen any vegans or vegetarians over the age of 75, that means that when vegans and vegetarians get to 74, they just drop off dead. You know, the protein deficiency just kicks in at 74 and they can't make it to 75 because this person has never seen any vegans or vegetarians in their GP practice before. Isn't that just amazing? The idea that we can't live to 75, but even better than that is what they're actually saying doesn't even make sense with the argument they're trying to make. Think about it this way. The conclusion isn't that they're all dying. The conclusion should be that they're not getting ill enough to go and see a GP or a doctor. The only patients I keep seeing who are complaining of having angina are all meat eaters. I guess this means the vegans must already all be dead. All the other doctors in the GP are like, yeah, that's a really good point. That's so strange when you think about it. We spend all day dealing with sick and ill people and they're never vegan. How weird is that? And even though we should take anecdotal evidence with a grain of salt, What would be more concerning was if the comment said, my son is a GP and all day, every day, he only deals with vegans. In fact, he's dealt with thousands of patients and they're only ever vegan. Now that would be concerning. The fact that your GP son has never had a patient over 75 who is vegan doesn't make me concerned. If anything, it makes me feel so much better.
There are a few ways a person could look at this. My first impression of such a comment is that it's kind of silly. I understand the point that perhaps vegans simply aren't able to make it that long. However, I don't think that veganism has been so widespread for so long as to have such a large number of long-term vegans who could possibly go to see that one GP. Whether they were over 75 or not, I would highly doubt that they had been vegan their entire lives. So we couldn't possibly know what was impacting their health. I can also kind of understand where Ed is coming from when he says that perhaps the reason for this is that the people who are vegan and who are also over 75 are in such great health that they don't need to see a doctor at all. But this is also sketchy for the aforementioned reason. I don't think it's rare for people over 75 to go see a GP for any reason. It's like pinpointing pregnant women and being like, oh, look how many of them are going to see a doctor. I'm pretty sure that's the point when your health is compromised with pregnancy or old age.
So the next comment is, it's called every argument against veganism, but what about the argument of not accepting morals? Of course, my bad. How did I overlook that? I can't believe I didn't include a rebuttal to the argument of, what if I'm a sociopath who has an inability to empathize with the suffering and well-being of others?
When it comes to your survival, it's no longer a matter of empathy. The same as when it's down to you feeding your family or stealing from a store to feed them. The person may feel bad about it or shame for having done quote-unquote something wrong, but on the other hand, their family is fed and they can survive a little longer, so those feelings don't matter in that case. The same as when you mean to protect yourself from certain danger, even if it means sacrificing the life of another living creature. Of course, you would have to know how poorly humans do on diets devoid of animal products before you can assert that consumption of said products is necessary. And it has taken years for us to get to the point where we can readily observe it, as well as hear testimonials of people who underwent the experiment.
How foolish and short-sighted of me. Now, hopefully it should be relatively obvious why we should live with a sense of morals and an understanding of why the subjective experiences and well-being of others is important. I mean, surely you wouldn't apply that same logic if someone was trying to hurt you. What if someone was trying to hurt you and then you said, hang on a minute, don't do that, I don't want you to. And they said, yeah, but what about the argument that I don't accept morals? What would we do then?
If someone is attacking you, trying to reason with them is a luxury you don't have in most cases. The fact that they are attacking you already means that morals have gone out the window. So what happens is, you fight to protect yourself and either win or die trying. And if you hurt the offender or kill them, and you have remorse down deep afterwards because it turns out you didn't do it for fun, you did it for survival, and that you aren't a sociopath after all, you understand why those feelings are there in the first place and you value them, and you don't subsequently go around strangling people or cats for fun. So basically, you just respond and be like most of the humans on the earth right now.
Imagine a world where this type of logic was actually thoroughly applied, where it was consistently and logically applied. That's a world without any judicial system, a world without any rights or wrongs, where anyone can do anything, and that's absolutely fine, as long as they say that they don't live with any morals.
This is actually the reality of the world that we live in right now. Morals are something that humans get together and decide. Laws are something that humans use to try to shape society into the kind of place they want to live in. What is right and what is wrong is very rarely black and white, as it is conditional. Punching people is wrong. If a person tries to kidnap me and I punch them and escape, it's about the rightest thing in the world for me to do in that moment. If I'm a boxer and in the middle of a match and I punch my opponent, it's not only right, but it's the whole point of the exercise we both consented to partaking in. If I come up on a child and punch them unprovoked, that would be wrong. Having a good reason for doing something, or else having permission to do something, goes farther than you think. Now, there is a point where consistency does start to matter. For example, if I killed a cat just because it felt good, I should reasonably expect a negative response from humanity, not wanting me around or wanting me to pay for it. They don't know if they could be next, so they will protect themselves from me as they see fit. But if I was homeless and killed a cat and ate it because I was hungry, I should be able to reasonably expect that people would understand and actively work to help make me a member of society who doesn't have to resort to desperate measures to stay fed. Instead, I can imagine a large number of misanthropes who would rather I starve to death than I kill and eat a cute and cuddly animal. That's an inconsistency that I can't stomach.
Now that's a pretty frightening world, and a world that not even you yourself would want to live in.
It doesn't matter what I want. There are 7 odd billion people I share this earth with, and none of them have a single moral obligation to do anything. I act in accordance with how I would want to be treated, to be sure, but I recognize that no amount of fantasizing is going to make what you just described not descriptive of life on planet Earth, so I act accordingly.
So the next comment is, didn't address the biggest claim. Humans are superior to other animals, and therefore what we do to them is our choice. How silly of me. However, all humans are equal, and treating humans improperly is a bigger deal.
There is so much I disagree with this comment, I don't know where to begin. To sum up my ideas on this, the case is that everyone is free to work within their own self-interest. Whether or not they make sacrifices, basically, they don't do what they want to do freely, is all down to reasonable expectation of the consequences of their actions. If you want to murder someone just because, understand that, reasonably, the rest of humanity won't sit around idly by, acting as though you should be able to get away with it. So don't act surprised when you face opposition in turn. You're just playing yourself, and what's the point of anything if you're just going to play yourself? Ed goes on to talk about why intelligence is not a great metric for moral consideration, and I agree, but that sentience is, which I disagree with, but he can place it wherever he wants. Anytime we do that, it's without merit, so it doesn't matter what your quote-unquote reasons are. They won't be compelling to someone who, say, understands that animals and their byproducts are human food, the same as grass is cow food, and that it's better for our condition as a species to eat real food if the goal is to thrive.
The next comment is, plants don't choose to be eaten as well. They have defense mechanisms, of course, defense mechanisms, like producing toxins to keep animals from eating them and their offspring seeds. But bacteria and viruses have defense mechanisms as well. So is it morally wrong to kill bacteria and viruses in the same way that it's morally wrong to kill humans and non-human animals too?
It's alright to kill anything that threatens you. Well, it's not alright as though I'm giving permission. It's a bare minimum level behavior that allows for survival or existence, which no person or thing has to ask for permission to do. Also, there is no moral weight that ought to be given to the deaths of things we can't help but kill because they are too small to avoid killing. Moral consideration would lose all meaning because existing as a moral being would be impossible, so what would be the point of drawing distinctions?
Is it morally wrong to take antibiotics to kill bacteria because bacteria have defense mechanisms? Of course, plants don't choose to be eaten. They don't choose to do anything. A plant doesn't choose to grow towards the sun. A plant doesn't choose to photosynthesize. A plant doesn't choose to absorb water, and a plant doesn't choose to use their defense mechanisms.
The same as humans don't get to choose what foods are actually meant to go in the human body and simultaneously facilitate thriving.
Animals do make conscious choices though. For example, they will choose to consume some foods over others. Take Rupert the hamster, for example. When I was younger, I had a hamster called Rupert, and Rupert the hamster liked certain foods like broccoli, but he didn't like certain foods like kale.
He actually used kale as an example. Isn't kale like the end-all be-all for the absolute dumbest thing any living creature could attempt to consume? The man-made food that, when it was attempted to be fed to sheep, caused them to get so sick that they scrapped the idea and decided to sell it to orthorexic humans instead?
Now, other hamsters out there in the world will have loved to eat kale, but Rupert the hamster didn't like kale because his personality and his likes and dislikes as an individual sentient animal meant that he had a preference for broccoli over kale. So he would consciously choose to pick one food over another food.
I want to know more. I so want to know more. Did he try the kale? Did he just sniff it and get a feeling? This reminds me of a video of a trial of fake meat burgers versus real, and how a cat could tell just by sniffing the man-made one that it wasn't food.
There she is. Our test person. What will you take? On the left, we have the Beyond Burger. That doesn't smell nice, does it? On the right, we have the real meat.
Good. Isn't it tasty?
Nice. That tastes good, eh?
See her tail, she's happy now.
Give it another go. No? You don't want our new vegan burger selection?
It literally ate all the real burger pieces and left the fake one. You leave an animal to graze, and it will eat what it wants, quote unquote, to be sure. If I had to choose between broccoli, kale, or starving to death, I'd choose broccoli too. Ed goes on to disapprove of comparing animals to plants, and I don't have much to say about his response.
even if you disagree with everything I've just said, you should still be vegan anyway, because more plants are used in the production of animal-based foods than they are plant-based foods, because all the animals who we farm are consuming plants as well. So if you actually care about plants, well then you'd be vegan anyway, because vegans use less plants overall.
Okay, so first off, the animals we consume ought to be eating their natural diet too. So if it's plants, they can eat those. If it's fish that eat smaller fish or something like that, then they can eat those. I don't have to go vegan at all. My concern is with food safety, so if I were to do anything, I would switch to eating animals that could eat their natural diet throughout their life, or I would work to make changes in the industry so that more people could have access to better quality food. In any case, I don't care about plants, and I don't think the comment was worth commenting on, but that's just me.
Alright, so that brings us to the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. Let me know down below in the comments what you thought of the comments that I responded to. Some of them are particularly astonishing. My favorite is that GP practitioner one. I love it on so many levels. But let me know down below what your favorite comment is.
Yeah, and after hearing your questionable response to it, I was also intrigued enough to want to say something in regard to it. The video pretty much ends after that. I don't know about you guys, but I'm consistently supremely underwhelmed. I may not leave comments, but my not choosing to give veganism a try is proof enough.